Whoa, hey guys, here's an hour-long video for all you Gravity Falls freaks just like me. You guys have really enjoyed a lot of the videos I've uploaded this year, so to celebrate, this is a one-stop shop for all your MrMatter Gravity Falls enjoyment. And if you do enjoy, please just hit that bell button right after you subscribe. That way you'll never miss another cartoon mental breakdown from me! Yay! Anyway, here's the video. MatPat was the beloved host of multiple channels from April 18th, 2011 until March 9th, 2024. MatPat was many things: a father, a husband, comedian, and most importantly, a reacher.
You need to leave!
Before this whole part of my speech, I need something. Hey, do you guys have a projector or something? No? That's alright, I brought my own.
The Bluetooth device is ready to pair. The Bluetooth device is connected successfully.
I have been watching MatPat for years, since I was a little goo goo gaga. And watching his videos, I'd agreed with a lot of his theories. The Willy Wonka video, his Matrix video about Neo not being the one, his Joker video about him being the hero of Gotham, and everybody's favorite, most of the FNAF videos. But we all know how famous he is for his reaches in his theories. We could talk about all of these, but one you don't want me to even begin with is his Gravity Falls theories. Wait guys, I was just about to talk about the Gravity Falls thing. Thank you. Theory 1, Rick and Morty theory.
Hey, what are you doing?
In this first theory, he starts with this classic very long opening skits, like he always does. Oh wait, this is gonna take a while. Let me just... There we go. Now we won't have to be here until Monday. Heyo! This whole theory is about how Rick and Morty is a sequel to Gravity Falls.
You heard that right. Rick and Morty is the unofficial Season 3 of Gravity Falls, a story directly connected to and happening around and after Weirdmageddon.
Like, he may prove that they are connected from Easter eggs, but that's like saying, now you see this owl house, he's actually a sequel to Gravity Falls. Like, no, it's just slice of similarities and Easter eggs.
Through one of those portals flies a pen, a notebook, and a coffee cup with a question mark on it.
I've always known about a lot of the top 100 Gravity Falls Easter eggs you missed, but MatPat does it to a point where I can feel him changing my mind. Like, I was sitting there like, damn, I'm being manipulated right now, and I didn't even know.
The exact 3 items that we see fly through Rick's portal.
I always thought it was stupid that Bill's portal goes to a portal Rick just opened. So I have a theory that they don't just connect, but the items were left floating in Bill's dimension and then eventually ended up through Rick's portal. Meaning that it could have been floating there for much longer than instantly being connected. When I thought of that addition, it made everything seem much better, and more importantly, part of the same universe. Because if these shows are connected, the portal having that stuff makes no sense if they're supposed to be the same portal, because that was not Bill Cipher's dimension. Rick was hopping around and putting portals all willy-nilly. And all of you should know that this cartoon theory, trademark pending, helps me sleep at night. The one point that really makes me nod my head was when old MatPat started talking about the books.
He becomes an outlaw across multiple different dimensions. He even shows us a copy of his wanted poster in the journal. But here's the thing. In the corner of that wanted poster is another code from Bill Cipher. A code that, when translated, says, Rick was here. Wait, what?
The whole wanted poster part is really interesting because it says the name Rick while talking about how he traveled through dimensions and befriending outlaws, which is exactly like Rick and his gang, including Bird Person.
What wubba lubba dub dub means?
That's just Rick's stupid nonsense catchphrase.
It's not nonsense at all. In my people's tongue.
Also, the fact Bill knows who Rick Sanchez is the funniest idea of this theory. At this point, I was totally kicking my feet up and twirling my little pigtail around. But then he talked about the hidden figures in the Weirdified Theory of Weirdness page. And at first I was like, oh yeah, that is a fucking Plumbus. And yeah, these freaks are the freaky aliens. It even made me get my copy and look at it again, and sure enough, they were there. But as I kept looking, I began to read the pages, you know, like you do, and I realized something. This all canonically was written prior to making the portal. This is literally right after he discovers multiple types of ghosts while staying at Wendy's dad's cabin, after 6 years and 3 journals, which is on that weirdness page right before Bill proposes the idea of the portal. Though around that time, Bill was called my muse, in homage to Stan's favorite band, Eurythmics. Oh, and also this page has Miss Pac-Man, a flying monkey, and Freddy freaking Freaker, according to my wife. So who knows what he was smoking? But either way, Matthew, that is just Cthulhu.
There's also the giant silhouette of Cthulhu, and not just any Cthulhu, but one that looks oddly similar to the one appearing in the opening sequence of every episode of Rick and Morty.
I refuse to think it's specifically the one from Rick and Morty, because it looks much more like a generic Cthulhu than one from Rick and or Morty. Oddly similar in my ass.
You need to leave!
No, you need to leave.
Bill is still leaving threatening notes in the background, meaning that he too survived and is probably eager to have his revenge. Holy poopy butthole, Rick and Morty fans, that would be why he was being analyzed in Nuptia 4. It also means that there's a very real, very canon possibility of Rick and Ford crossing paths again, joining up one last time to fight the returning threat of Bill Cipher.
Holy poopy butthole, Rick and Morty fans. I mean, it would be cool if Bill returned and Rick gets his whole team back together to defeat him, but like, that's just not gonna happen. Just by the fact that one's Adult Swim and the other is Disney, star-crossed lovers I know. The only reason The Simpsons literally just had Bill in there is because of Disney. So MatPat being like, it'll happen, is not only wrong by the fact we see how Rick and Morty has gone since then, but also because of plain old trademarks, licensing, and copyright. No Jimmy Timber Power Hour for these powerhouses of animation. The closest thing we can get is the Mabel and Dipper background Mortys. I don't believe there is / will be a multiverse line where an episode of Rick and Morty has Rick Sanchez for real meet Stanford Pines. I would love it if I was wrong though, but the fact that this video is going so hard into "it's real guys, my dad works for Bill" is kind of ridiculous. He does say that's not going to happen at the very end of this video, but I want to get little Timmy's hopes up and then be like, lol, I'm JK right now, lol. Like bro, I was so ready to watch the episode with my sick ass hospice Morty Funko Pop. Theory 2. Bill Alive, Grunkle Stan Theory. His second theory has a long-ass 2-minute intro that is mainly spent on setting up the video by recapping the finale, where he starts talking about Grunkle Stan losing his memories.
And losing all memories of the loved ones he left behind. For about 3 minutes. Yeah, it's not all that much of a sacrifice as it turns out, as Stan's memories come back in less time than it takes to mix up a blender full of Mabel juice.
I always thought the fact that Stan gets his memory back to just be kinda bad. Like, it's good that the ending's plain happy, besides the fact that Dipper and Mabel have to go to school now instead of going on adventures to solve the mysteries of the universe multiverse. But I think that really made the show's impact of that scene not worthwhile. Like, he didn't have his memories for like 26 seconds. Come on, people. This also has the viewer question exactly what Mr. Pat Mad is saying. Why doesn't Bill come back though?
Invoke the ancient power that I may return. But what's all this about an axolotl?
The whole axolotl thing Bill says is a bit annoying. He says in reverse language that he'll be back, which leads fans to believe that it's Stan he's coming back through, then the Cipher Hunt statue, and now the recently released Book of Bill, just because of him saying will return. But I think we all know that he would only really return if a new Gravity Falls episode or something like that comes out. Because anytime anything comes out that is the return of Bill, it gets debated because it's not a satisfying miniseries. Like, unless Wendigoon makes a 30-hour video explaining the plot of the Book of Bill, people aren't going to agree that that's the actual return of Bill or an ending for Gravity Falls.
That there was a real-life Bill Cipher statue hidden somewhere in the US, a worldwide treasure hunt. It appeared to be led by Grunkle Stan. it's in reverse. It's worth noting that every time a character has ever spoken in reverse, it was because of Bill. All objects found throughout this treasure hunt tended to be related to either Bill or Grunkle Stan. It's almost as if the creators were hinting towards a connection between Bill and Stan.
The point that Stan is possessed by Bill during the Cipher statue hunt is a good one. Mr. Pat uses evidence of reverse dialogue and insistence upon shaking Bill's hand.
Shortly after, he recommends that you shake the statue's hand.
Shake his hand, that's kind of like a prize.
And the fact that Stan is making a scavenger hunt being something Stan wouldn't usually do, and the fact he's the only character to give clues means that he actually is the only one doing it. So either he's thinking of some long-term con, or Bill was possessing him. Or the more likely option, Alex Hirsch really likes doing the Grunkle Stan voice and literally does it all the time. So he wanted to do a funny voice that any other character other than McGucket or Seuss he couldn't do because he has to get actors for it. And those two characters would make even less sense to start a scavenger hunt. Except for Seuss. He's kind of suspicious. But the fact it was only Bill and Stan iconography and items makes this theory 100% more believable. Along with the talking reverse, because nobody does that in the show unless they're in contact with Bill, like Gideon and McGucket. Also, what the fuck did McGucket see through the portal? Bill twerking his big bubbly triangle butt. Actually, cool update. In the journal it says in code that one peek into my dimension and this bumpkin lost his weak little mind. All he saw was me removing my exoskeleton to feed. If you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen, Jack. So I finally know what the heck Filford saw in there. I like the jiggly butt theory more.
Eventually, the fans found the Bill Cipher statue, and beside it was a chest. In the chest, there was a USB drive of Grunkle Stan singing We'll Meet Again by Vera Lynn.
I don't know why I never thought about how that could mean that they're connected, but I also thought that this was just a random thing Alex released around the time of the Cipher hunt, not part of the main prize. But Matt's argument falls apart a bit when he talks about Grunkle Stan claiming it's his statue.
Stan goes on to congratulate you on finding his statue. A very interesting choice of words, to be sure.
What the actual quote is, "Congrats on finding my mysterious treasure of the statue in the forest." He's saying that the treasure is his, not the statue. My mysterious treasure. But if Bill did possess him, it could literally be him saying that he owns it. Since I guess it would be Stan's by that point. Like, the only other person that claim it is theirs is Bill. But like, he's gone? Unless Bill is Grunkle Stan. Or it'll be Seuss, since you know, he owns and runs the shack now. Seuss is a little suspicious though.
Shake his hand, that's kind of like a prize.
Why would he be encouraging us to shake Bill Cipher's hand? Unless, of course, this isn't Stanley talking.
Also, Grunkle Stan knows you need to shake Bill's hand for it to do something, so yeah, it's 100% Bill Cipher. But who would be Bill now? My attorney? My therapist? The only one who knew I was there at this point was Alex Hirsch.
We already know that Bill can mimic someone else's voice when he's in their body, but then why in the finale aren't his eyes yellow? Well, it's because Bill only controls Stan when he sleeps.
But the Bill possessing while Stan is asleep edition really sells this more. It solves why when his memory comes back, Stan wouldn't know that Bill is actually back. So maybe Bill is playing the long game to never get noticed. Which will be real difficult since Great Uncle Ford and him are literally sailing around the world together, which also isn't mentioned in this guy's video at all. Wait, when the fuck is the Cipher hunt supposed to canonically happen? Or even the journals for that matter. I guess just like Shermy Pines, the showrunners literally have no clue how the timeline really works, but that's okay because who really cares anyways. The in theory actually kind of sucks though. Well, let me do it like... The in theory actually kind of sucks though. Because Matt at the last second throws out the idea that Grunkle Stan has been possessed the whole time?
So, there you have it. A theory on Bill Cipher being alive and trapped inside Stanley's mind. While I was researching this theory, it struck me. It's pretty crazy how close these two characters are with each other. It's almost as if they've been connected on a deeper level since the very beginning.
Like, does that make any sense at all? The reason Bill was defeated was because of Stan getting his mind erased. But I guess that was when Grunkle Stan was awake. How come at no point Bill would use the fact he possessed Grunkle Stan to be able to take over the world, or find out where the last survivors are and where to get in, or I don't know, try to do literally anything during his time on the show to better his case, to better his cause. All we could say is the time Stan went against Vord, but that was when he was awake.
We've already established how backwards talk tends to relate to Bill, and now we have someone speaking backwards telling us not to trust Grunkle Stan?
Like, I love this idea, but there's just no other evidence other than this.
Stan is not what he seems. What if it was referring to something else the entire time? Could it really be possible that these two characters are actually one and the same? Guess that's a theory for another day. In the meantime, remember, reality isn't real, the universe is a hologram, and that's just a theory.
Which is why MatPat ends the video very fast after this, which is something Matt does sometimes. He kind of just throws theory after theory at you, even though they don't work or go together as a complete theory. Then it just kind of ends with his weirdest statement: since it's the end of the video, who cares? What do you know? It's the end of the video, it's just a theory, doesn't matter, bye gold, bye! Theory 3. Bill alive. Alex Hirsch. My first time seeing his newest Gravity Falls video was for this funeral. It's also very cute that Matthew Patrick's son got into Gravity Falls.
Why am I talking about it now, 8 years after the show ended? Well, it's Ollie's current favorite show right now.
Like, this whole trilogy of theories began with Matt and Mrs. Pat getting into the show. And now his little goo goo gaga is enjoying the show, which is really cool and wholesome. Smiley face.
It is without question my single favorite animated series of all time. And honestly, it was the pioneer in getting a fan base to start theorizing about your show.
I love that both Gravity Falls and FNAF straight up just changed the way people do videos on YouTube. And that, and also MatPat basically founding the theory-making YouTube genre. These three titans of industry all made YouTube such a cool and interesting place. So many YouTubers have been inspired by these things, and they, in turn, inspire more and more and more. I wouldn't have made this channel or even this video without Gravity Falls, FNAF, and of course, MatPat. Thank you so much for everything, Matthew Patrick, leader of game, film, food, and style, founder of the YouTube theorist community. Thank you so much for playing a Maya Gamer.
You see, my friends, the Blacklight edition of Journal 3 sent me down a rabbit hole that led me to only one conclusion. Alex Hirsch, creator of Gravity Falls, he is Bill Cipher. Or rather, he's possessed by Bill Cipher in the real world, just like what we saw happen with characters in the series. And not only is he possessed, Alex is aware of that possession and is actively fighting against Bill's influence in a way that you would never expect.
Okay, I don't know if you noticed just from the title of this video, but this is yet another Bill Cipher is alive theory. His trilogy of Gravity Falls series each has Bill Cipher being alive, or has a he's gonna return part. And I say part because only the first one really has only a part. The latter two are just the same video but using slightly different evidence. Why doesn't he use the same and much better evidence of Bill Cipher possessing people in their sleep from the last video?
Page 142, quote again, "I fell asleep on my cot only to awake sitting at my desk staring at the strange symbols inscribed below. He is taking advantage while I sleep." End quote. This tells us that it is very possible Bill is only controlling Stan at night.
The new one is so much less good. That is strange to use.
Subtly explains exactly how he's writing in this book. He says, quote, "Six fingers just conked out, and that means Captain Bill is steering the ship." And later again, Sixer's about to wake up, which means that Bill is able to puppeteer Ford's body while he's asleep. So what if he were actually able to do that with Alex Hirsch out here in the real world?
MatPat picks another letter E and says that it's exactly Bill's handwriting, but it's literally just an E.
It is exactly the same.
He uses evidence like Bill likely possessed Alex Hirsch to write both the Book of Bill, some AMA posts, and the author blurb at the beginning of the Blacklight edition of Journal 3. He uses the fact that Bill wants to be outside of his basic reality. Bill is in other shows.
He's making a deal with the all-powerful Axolotl to be able to come back in some other dimension. And we know that he's likely popping around other universes now, since he's visible in other franchises like Rick and Morty, Big City Greens, The Owl House, DuckTales, even The Simpsons.
Buy crypto, suckers!
And the Bill statue being in our world, all to say that Bill Cipher could possess Alex Hirsch in real life IRL. All of this is very much a reacher of a theory, unless you consider it an ARG meta-narrative. And within that, MatPat is indeed correct. All of the material released after the show, such as books and the Cipher Hunt, can all be seen as this meta-narrative ARG that Alex Hirsch, the real guy, not the meta one, is trying to tell. This is definitely the meta-narrative intended for the audience to read into. There's the text of the show, where Bill Cipher may come back into Sam's mind. There's the multiverse concept, where Bill may come back in another dimension, such as Rick and Morty. And then there's the ARG, where Alex Hirsch is possessed by Bill to make more Gravity Falls content other than the show. This is all fine and good. But then MatPat continues to say how Alex Hirsch knows that Bill is in his mind, that Alex Hirsch, the real guy, is trying to defeat him in real life.
The reason we haven't all been doomed by a new pyramid-shaped overlord taking over our sad reality, just like Dipper, Ford, and Stan, Alex Hirsch ain't letting Bill win without a fight. In fact, he's doing his best to banish Bill forever. And not using a memory gun. No, he's using his own career.
He never gets into how Alex Hirsch knows that Bill is in his head, and instead says that Alex is trying to create the Cipher Zodiac wheel with his career of projects.
Watching the series, this thing was everywhere. It is teased in literally every episode.
One of these pieces of evidence he uses for this Cipher Wheel of Projects theory is the Zodiac never being used.
By the end of the series, they've set this thing up as a prophecy explaining the one true way to banish Bill Cipher once and for all. And yet in the end, this Zodiac, it doesn't pay off. After all the buildup and the teases, the Zodiac doesn't actually work because Ford and Stan refuse to hold hands. Basically, Alex Hirsch creates this huge thing, sets up this massive Chekhov's gun, and it never gets used.
The reason it was never used is because that'd be boring. The story reason is that Grunkle Stan doesn't hold everyone else's hand because it won't work, even though these MFers are literally glowing with blue energy. And then the writer's reason for this not happening is because that'd be boring. They stand in a circle and Bill dies, who cares? Bill destroys it and Grunkle Stan sacrifices himself. Whoa, what an impactful ending, am I right? Just because they used it as a misdirect doesn't mean they didn't use it in its most effective way of storytelling. And that also doesn't mean that Alex Hirsch has been using this over his career to defeat Bill Cipher. Like, what?
This Zodiac just wound up being a massive misdirect. Now though, I think I finally understand. While I was putting together this episode, I began to realize more and more that these symbols looked familiar. Not because they were in Gravity Falls, but because they correspond with other projects that Alex Hirsch has worked on over the years.
And then he uses different evidence of different projects Alex has worked on to fill the Cipher Wheel. Not his projects like Gravity Falls, instead shows and movies he's worked on. I could go through each one and saying why each doesn't work well, but it doesn't matter because it's arbitrary in the first place.
The six-fingered handprint, that's obviously referencing Gravity Falls itself, but the shooting star, for instance, well, that lines up perfectly with Kid Cosmic, a show about a kid who gets superpowers from cosmic stones of power crash landing near his house. Hirsch worked as a writer on 2 of the stories for that series.
The pentagram, he says the owl house because it's witchy and he worked on it, but the show literally is made by someone who worked on Gravity Falls. Dipper's tree symbol for amphibia. Because trees? The Flapjack one is literally a single episode, though it's so crazy specific it might be the case.
The glasses? They look a lot like the signature eyewear worn by the Mitchell family in Netflix's Mitchells vs. the Machines, a film where Hirsch was a story consultant and voiced the character of Dirk.
Mitchells and the Machines is a movie. Are all these only for movies or shows? He's made books and other projects that could be forced into there. And by only the 7th symbol does he say that the symbols don't need to be literal and shows the clip.
It's likely that many of these are symbols that are going to be coming down the pipeline for Alex, but then again, remember what they said in the show.
The symbols needn't all be literal, Dipper.
So with that in mind...
But how are the other ones not that literal as well? Like for the star symbol show, it's like, well, duh, it's a star. But Amphibia's main thing would be, I don't know, frogs? They're in a swamp, sure, but Mitchells and the Machines be glasses? Because some of them wear glasses? What the fuck are you talking about? Now they'll be less literal. The witchy symbol for the owl house is already a vibe. That symbol never appears in that fucking show once.
It seems fitting for Hirsch's work on the Owl House, a story all about witches and demons.
You know what does appear up in the owl house? Dipper's literal hat. Slap that on the wheel. The oyster symbol is a secret society fez about the Royal Order of the Holy Mackerel, a group of Grunkle Stan's dad and other other guys who worship the fish in a tank, not fish hooks.
The oyster symbol here. Hirsch was a key creative representative in another Disney series called Fish Hooks, a show set inside of a giant fish tank where you'd presumably be able to find similarly shaped shells.
This one is at least closer than Amphibia, but if that's the case, why now did you put that disclaimer that they're stretch? Ice because ice is in the Snow Kingdom of Mario? What about the ice in Amphibia? Or the ice in Owl House? What about the Ice King from Adventure Time? Because Alex knew a guy who worked on the show so he had a little input? Put that on the wheel. That'll defeat this Bill Cipher in real life. Because Bill Cipher has been planning this since he first worked on Flapjack. You fucking deceiving bastard. You lied to these people. And you lied to me.
The llama. That one is weird and oddly specific. And again, I haven't found a strong match for it. But I will say that I expect the llama to be representative of the last project on this Alex Hirsch Zodiac.
Llama for Alex Hirsch's next project? To defeat Bill Cipher? What? Even? Uh-oh.
We're in pursuit, we're in pursuit.
I love the idea that before Rick and Squanch and Bird Person just hung out, and if Dipper and him ever visit Rick, then Fork could go, Dipper, you know what wubba lubba dub dub means, right? And Dipper goes, it's just one of Rick's weird catchphrases. Well, Dipper, it's actually a very sorrowful message about how much pain and torment he's in. Then it cuts to Rick dancing all happy, but in Dipper's eyes, he sees it all sad, and with sad music build up. I'm sorry, I'm tearing up just thinking about it. And Bill Cipher said,
You're a lot more clever than you look, especially the fat one.
And Seuss said,
He's talking about you.
did Bill actually mean Seuss or Mabel? Because throughout the series after this, Seuss hasn't shown any sort of extra cleverness or been any sort of conflict against Dipper or Mabel in any large or significant way. But Mabel is why Dipper gave into Bill, and many other conflicts of the summer are Dipper versus Mabel, and Mabel quite literally caused the end of the world. So this means that Bill was being extremely rude in talking about Mabel when Bill Cipher said,
You're a lot more clever than you look, especially the fat one.
Anyways, huh? What's that? Just go watch my last video to see why I'm dumping MatPat's body into this random lake here. And there we go. Sleep well, King. Salutes. What's that over there?
My ex-wife still misses me, but her aim is getting better. Her aim is getting better.
Ex-wife, huh? That's something I should really look into. Hello entire net and welcome to Cartoon Theory. In the last video I didn't exist, so today we're once again talking about Gravity Falls.
Oh, Gravity Falls, it is good to be back.
Gravity Falls is a show full of mysterious mysteries, including the man of mystery himself. We've seen over the course of the show how Grunkle Stan cheats, lies, and most importantly, can't be trusted. Listen to that dog talk backwards. That's cray cray. But that's cray cray.
Why you acting so cray cray?
But just like he said, in the season 2 episode Not What He Seems, the best episode of television, Grunkle Stan is shown to be not what he seems, as he's distrusted by Mabel and Dipper. But after the author is revealed, we never see them look into Grunkle Stan or his past. But as we heard earlier while I was discarding stuff,
My ex-wife still misses me, but her aim is getting better.
ex-wife. This is literally never mentioned before or after since in the show. No, they don't get into the family tree that much in Gravity Falls, because clearly the whole Shermie Pines debacle, the writers also just don't know the times, dates, relationships between characters' families. Rest in peace, McGucket's forgotten son from episode 2. But I believe that, for some reason, the most amount of care and attention to detail they've put into one of these characters, that wasn't a main cast character, was Grunkle Stan's one-off joke ex-wife that appears in only episode 2. fully, that is, because there's many background details and lore that could truly figure out who the wife is, and more importantly, the situation and how they became X's instead of O's. Okay, that one sucked. How does the other guy do this for every single video for 13 years straight? Holy crap, 13 years is a long time. Can't wait till I'm that old. Throughout Gravity Falls, there's many mentions of Grunkle Stan's wild and just plain all over the place past. He's been all over the country doing scams and selling anything and everything cheap as soon as he was kicked out of his parents' place at a very young age. We even see some memories in the episode Dreamscaperers. In this episode, we see the gang go into Stan's mind to stop Bill Cipher from getting Stan's safe code. And in one of the memories is him somehow ending up in a Colombian prison, another of him learning how to fight from his dad, and how his date actually went with Lazy Susan.
Non-specific excuse!
Yeesh.
This all shows how much history has gone into Grunkle Stan, to the point where I believe the writers just want to keep telling more and more and more. Just like this particular paragraph in the book Journal 3, a one-to-one recreation of what the literal Journal 3 would look like in the world of Gravity Falls. In the paragraph it states, Grunkle Stan getting married? Apparently he married a waitress named Marilyn Rosenstein in Las Vegas for 48 hours, but it turned out she was just trying to steal his car. A true scam artist, maybe she was the right one for him. Maybe she was the right one for him. How cute. They truly are meant to be together. But wait, that's yet another mention of Grunkle Stan's supposed ex-wife, and with loads of lore to boot. The mention of him getting married in Las Vegas is just like the end gag of the episode Seuss and the Real Girl. This episode was about Seuss having an anime yandere girl come to life with some magical AI, and at some point the AI bringing animatronics to life. Not only is this one of the best episodes of the show, predicted Doki Doki Literature Club 3 years early, with Doki Doki even coming out on the 3-year anniversary, but it also had animatronics come to life only a month before the release of Five Nights at Freddy's. Theories can never escape the infinite hold of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. In fact, this episode even predicted the fact that post-Scott Cawthon FNAF would have AI to be the core aspect of the series, instead of remnants of unalive children haunting the animatronics. But the main point of interest of this episode is Grunkle Stan's B-plot, where he must fight a haunted animatronic badger that represents the future that's surpassing the withered old Grunkle Stan, who then gets saved by the tin can that represents his old time, not quite giving up just yet.
How's about you and me hit the town? These old has-beens are going to Vegas!
We're going to Vegas. This plotline is then followed in the end gag of this very episode, which would be interesting enough with how we actually get to see the Vegas mentioned of his ex-wife. But then we hear the song at the end say, "We're gonna get married. It's a great idea. Who are you two chumps? This was a mistake. What?" Which before was just kinda a funny gag at the end of an awesome episode, is now a glimpse of what might have happened with this so-called Marilyn. In the same sort of way as the Wax Stan being a glimpse of Grunkle Stan's brother. In that episode Headhunters, Grunkle Stan has had a whole funeral and service for his quote-unquote murder of Wax Stan, which fans have since seen as Grunkle Stan grieving over losing his twin brother all those years ago. It was once played off as a joke, but fans now see it as something sad after knowing what we now know. Though that's nowhere as unserious as Stan's ex-wife. Remember that Grunkle Stan doesn't actually feel bad about losing Marilyn, to even the point of making the best joke of the show.
But her aim is getting better!
Now, something interesting about this name Marilyn is that we actually see this name pop up. No, not in the show, silly. Like I said before, this is literally never mentioned before or since in the show. But I didn't say anything about another show.
I think we just found our loophole. Literally. Wop wop!
I'm so cool, like geez. Now, I want you to take a look at this scene and notice if there's anything interesting about it.
Oh, Marilyn?
You get a Cawthorn as Gravity Falls Grunkle Stan ex-wife. Oh, wait. I just said it, didn't I? Well, don't worry, we're gonna need more evidence than this anyway. Now, if you somehow don't know, The Owl House is a show that ran from 2020 to 2023, being run by Gravity Falls legend Dana Terrace, known for being a storyboard artist, revisionist, and animator for the hit show. In their show, The Owl House, there's Ida Cawthorn, a full of zest getting up there in age con artist, and sometimes criminal, who tries to be a good family person, and has a smart aleck sibling who they don't always get along with, but they still love and accept each other. Even after one of them does a bad thing that kind of ruins their life. Yes, that was intentionally comparing Grunkle Stan and Ida, and no, it was not subtle. These two are literally meant for each other. If not, then they're at least of the same mold to the point where they're almost the same character. The Owl House is usually set in the Boiling Isles, a world full of witches defined by their pointy ears. The main story being of Luce, a girl from the human world deciding to stay in this dimension of monsters. We never really leave this location for most of the show, except for the mid-season finale for the Owl House, Yesterday's Lie. We see this scene while the cast are trying to find magic items in the human world.
Oh, Marilyn? Yeah, she tried to pay for a latte with a live raccoon a couple months ago. Marilyn?
This show began with Ida stealing items from the human world to resell as knickknacks and such. But who's to say she didn't explore around and eventually end up in Las Vegas? Ida's 100% too much of a risk-taking, fortune-seeking bad girl to not have explored this capitalist land of America. And even in this image, we see that she's wearing headgear to disguise her pointy witch ears, just like how Luz did for human ears in the witch world. Now, something we must ask, is this enough? Because I believe this itself would be enough for me to be like, confirmed! But not only do we have the 1000% canon book saying that ex-wife was named Marilyn, but then Ida's human self being named that too. The book saying that she conned Grunkle Stan of all people, which perfectly fits in with Ida's shifty character. But there's even more connections. In the comic Gravity Falls Lost Legends, where we see Dipper and Pacifica team up for the first time since the Northwest Mansion episode. In the comic, we see Dipper using a different journal than the classic Journal 3 to solve the case. And in this Journal 1, we see none other than the iconic Boiling Isles written just a bit off screen. And in the background, we see Ida Saf with a little Albert inside, Slenderman? Dude, that's just literally Slenderman. What does this mean? Doesn't it just stop at predicting any horror games, but also just has creepypastas as part of their world? Where does it stop? Is Jeff the Killer canon? My wife would love that. Sorry for calling you out, honey, but Jeff the Killer is funny. And lastly, literally just a wanted poster for Ida. It's her exact hair and bangs, the little ball earrings, and her iconic pointy elf ears. This Connexie shows much more than just a little Easter egg of her name and personality matching each other. They literally show up in Gravity Falls, just like Slenderman. This next evidence is the biggest, so I'll get into the context of how it came to be. So, in 2018, Gravity Falls The Complete series released, nearly 2 years after the release of Journal 3, and with it, a commentary track for nearly every episode of Gravity Falls by the creators of the show. But for one special episode, The Land Before Swine, we have an in-character commentary track from none other than Grunkle Stan. In this commentary track, we hear him talk about the episode for a few minutes, and then the rest of it going off on tangents. We love to see it. We hear more about the holy mackerel and Stan's fez and the whole story with it. A cute moment of Seuss and Grunkle Stan bonding like father and son. How cute. And, most importantly, this clip of Grunkle Stan talking about his ex-wife.
You probably want to hear about my ex-wife, right? There's not much to tell. I bring her up every now and then. I tell jokes. You know, I was actually married for less than a day. Vegas situation. We reached for the same slot machine handle and it was love at first sight. Marilyn.
Not only was this the same story as the Vegas situation, but the theory is in the details.
Had hair like an airline stewardess and a neon pink shirt that said, over 30 and very flirty. Man, I was putty in her hands. Should have seen the way she threw dice. One time right at my head. Turns out she only married me to distract me while she stole my car and all my winnings. And I guess her name was fake and her hair was fake, but you know, the love was real. She really was the one that got away. Sometimes I still think of her. That pale bingo hall skin, that one weirdly sharp tooth. You know, I think I learned a little bit of a lesson from that, which is you open your heart and blood comes out and you die. So, you know, try not to be a sap like I was.
And over in 30 very flirty shirt, pale bingo hall skin, and one weirdly sharp tooth. I don't know if you noticed, but this perfectly describes Ida. And not only that, it was also the exact same shirt Ida wore throughout the show. This commentary track was released in 2018, the exact same year that the Owl House was greenlit for production, to its later release of 2020. With all this evidence, we can see the full story now. Ida, wanting to make it rich, like usual, goes to the human realm. Goes to another place in Vegas, where she meets Stan while reaching for the same slot machine handle. Yet another con man trying to make it big, and indeed he did. But he's already head over heels for this unknown to him witch named Ida. So then when Ida gambled, flirted, and ended up even getting married to Stanford, he was ready to go all the way with Marilyn. But this was all a long con. While Stan was at the altar, you could hear a car whizzing by. But not just any car, that's Stan's car. He stole not only his car, but his winnings. And let's not forget, his heart. Stan will always see her as the one that got away, but to Ida, it was just another con. Ida has a they them at home anyway. They don't need an old conman human to make her habits even worse than they already are. So, with all that said, is this canon? I say, why not? Unlike some other theories that connect shows together that makes you question why they don't interact more or even at all. Looking at you, Rick and Morty x Gravity Falls. This one fits perfectly in the world of each other and doesn't contradict anything about the lore of each other. Also, who really thinks that Ida as Grunkle Stan's ex-wife is a terrible thing anyway? Is that a theory that adds character development or extra schlock that could fill in a whole episode or even an arc of a show that'll never get it? Instead, it's just a little night in Vegas that lets the one slip away. Even though they really are perfect for each other. But hey, that's just a theory. A cartoon theory. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to the Super Amazing In-Car Tournament, where last time I didn't exist. In honor of the late Gravity Falls, today's question: what's the better sequel to Gravity Falls? The Owl House, Amphibia, or Rick and Morty? Comment below to cast your vote for the better Gravity Falls spiritual successor. In this scene of Gravity Falls, Bill Cipher says,
Until then, I'll be watching you. I'll be watching you.
This is a reference to the fact that he's watching them. Subscribe for more. Subscribe. This one joke quite literally saved this episode of Gravity Falls. The season 2 episode, The Love God, is hated by a lot of fans of this incredible show. I have a whole video explaining about that and the whole Robbie hating experience in this other video you should watch. But what you mainly need to know is that people really don't like this episode, but love this one joke. So in the episode, Grunkle Stan is very upset about the Woodstick Festival coming to town. He hates hippies, their hot air balloons, their open toes, and their folk music. But Seuss puts the idea in his head that he could go and make a lot of money from this market that he never tried to tap into. So what he does throughout the episode while the main plot is happening is that he makes a hot air balloon to market himself to these kids, to sell his stuff. And whenever Seuss brings up something that could be wrong,
are you sure that that open flame should be that close to that dangling cloth and rope?
He just dismisses it and says it's a great idea. He has a schematic showing a big hot air balloon of his face saying, "Our heart kids." What a neat idea. And throughout the entire episode, it's building up to this one moment. This one moment, while some of the fans may be raging about the episode, this one joke is slowly being built up in the background until the scene finally happens. Where it's so brilliant, and also because of copyright, I need to explain every single bit. But not just because of copyright, even though it may seem like it. It's because each second builds up on top of each other in such a good way. And also this video is about explaining this, so let me do this for a second, alright? So right after Grunkle Stan explains the idea, he says, "Let it rip," to let the hot air balloon go. And then Seuss in response says, "Oh no, let it rip." which I love that pun. And then Grunkle Stan goes, "What the H?" And then the H from the I Heart Kids falls down, and then the R, which is so brilliant because that not only is a pun within the what the H, but then getting rid of that letter makes the I Heart Kids into I Eat Kids, which makes all the kids of the Woodstick Festival entirely terrified of this amalgamation of what Seuss tried to create based upon Stan's basic design of literally just a drawing with no idea of how to even actually make it. Then one kid says it's heaven's punishment for their awful taste in everything. And this is where most shows would probably leave it off at, but that's not only it. Then it continues and it catches on fire, and then this literal child goes, "Is the floating head going to eat us?" And then the mom goes, "Yes, it is." While this crazy fucking Attack on Titan shot of just this giant flaming Grunkle Stan head that's being distorted grotesquely is going towards them. Even if you haven't seen the show for a while, or you just seen that scene around, another great part is what happens afterwards. Like, it was so good. It stacks jokes and pop jokes of each other, one after another, all being so clever and being what was set up before, not just coming out of nowhere. But then it ends the literal main conflict of the episode by having the head led on the love god and have the potion drop out, being the main plot solved of the episode. So not only did it do all that, but it solved the main plot, or then the conclusion to it, being that Grunkle Stan says that he loves that they hate him more than they love him.
You know what? Being loved by the youth is overrated. Being feared, now that's priceless.
So as you see, this joke is not only like pretty funny with some of the bits, but just how many jokes they do simultaneously over and over within this one bit is so it's just so clever and so good. It shows why they're so good at writing, especially compared to how the rest of the episode isn't written that well, to the point where people complain about it, which you could see in this other video I made. Literally, whenever anybody complains about this episode or anything about it, they always say, well, this one joke was really good. And it's because this joke is so good and can only exist within this episode. Which is one of the best things about Gravity Falls, is that even if you hate an entire episode, like one of my least favorite episodes is the Roadside Attraction, but there's still jokes in there that I find funny. And it's one of those things that's like, you can literally just hate an episode, but you're going to have a joke or a scene that plays in your mind or you find really funny or you think is cool or clever. Which is why Gravity Falls is one of the best shows ever. Like, I love the Owl House and I consider it like a spiritual successor to Gravity Falls, but that show definitely has a lot of episodes that are not that good. And they definitely don't have any jokes this well. And that's why this hated episode of Gravity Falls got saved by one joke. In the Gravity Falls fandom, I've seen two statements that I'm not sure are that true. One being that Robbie doesn't deserve redemption, and two, that Robbie x Tambry is terrible. Now, if you just like the show and aren't into the fandom that much, you might not know what the second statement means entirely, but one thing every single viewer knows is
Robbie. You can probably figure him out.
Yeah, I'm the guy who spray painted the water tower.
Robbie was introduced in the very 5th episode of the show, The Inconveniencing. In this episode, Dipper tries to prove himself as a cool teenager to impress his way too old for him crush, Wendy. And the main problem of that is Robbie, most viewers' most hated character. The best part about this episode is that Robbie isn't overly antagonistic. He isn't starting stuff for no reason, just responding to the situation to take shots at Dipper. But why would he do that? Only a little something called insecurity. Robbie is such an insecure 16-year-old that a mere 12-year-old is a threat to his relationship with Wendy. The very first sentence from Robbie is in response to the twins even showing up saying,
So are you like babysitting or...
Come on, Robbie.
So are you babysitting or... And Wendy gives a scoff, showing that these two shouldn't be together from the beginning. But honestly, it's kind of crazy that the group doesn't make fun of Wendy at all. Imagine bringing two barely 13-year-olds to your group of 16-year-olds. It may not seem that crazy with just throwing around numbers, but look at that height difference. These are literally high schoolers hanging out with middle schoolers.
Yeah, I'm the guy who spray painted the water tower.
Oh, you mean the big muffin?
It's a giant explosion?
Robbie, that looks so much more like a muffin than an explosion. I'm sorry, but it's true. But because of this one interaction, I guess Robbie decided to target Dip Dip for the rest of the show pretty much. Because it wasn't until Fight Fighters that Wendy and Robbie are actually dating. Whenever remembering the show, I always think, oh, they were together for the entire show. But no, during the Inconveniencing, Double Dipper, and the Time Traveler's Pig, they were straight up just not together. Which shows in each episode by having Robbie trying to oppress Wendy in some way. Which means that by this point, he does indeed feel threatened by Dipper in his relationship. Which we may make fun of, but Dipper did literally go back in time constantly just to try and impress Wendy. If season 1 Dipper knew that Wendy wouldn't date him because of an age difference, he definitely would have 100% aged himself up for an episode before realizing he'd rather grow up at a normal pace. So in this pre-dating Wendy phase, what bad can we see from Robbie? Besides what we said before about being protective of a girl he likes. Not much, but within that there's loads to look at. We already talked a bit about the Inconveniencing, but he pretty much just calls him lame several times, usually leading to Dipper doing something to impress the group out of peer pressure, which would have caused the group to be cruelly tortured by ghosts if Dipper wasn't actually a 12-year-old. They were going to do this tonight anyways. If Dipper and Mabel didn't join them, they'd be deleted. In Double Dipper, he literally doesn't do anything to Dipper directly, just trying to impress Wendy with his guitar. So Dipper decides to clone himself several times and have 2 of the clones steal Robbie's bike. Like, you see what I mean by Dipper being a threat? If he was 10% more of a bad person, Robbie would be fucked. His life would be over. He should end himself now.
And give somebody else a piece of that oxygen so that we can breathe inside this blue trapped bubble. Because what are you here for?
Wendy and Robbie finally started officially dating at the end of Time Traveler's Pig, after Dipper gives up trying to impress Wendy so that Mabel can have waddles. Which won't be the last or first time Dipper giving up something for Mabel, though in this case it's actually not worth it for Dipper and way more worth it for Mabel. I mean, like, it's waddles, you know? So now for the actual dating Wendy phase. You may be thinking he was annoying before, but this is where he takes the cake of being a dingle snatcher. Fight Fighters. Oh boy, Fight Fighters. Even before the intro, Robbie gets so insecure about Dipper by being all, I just want to hang out with my GF, bro.
Dipper was just showing me this great game.
Hey, how's about you sit this one out, okay, champ?
But
We just started this round.
Whoa, hey, relax, man. I'm just trying to spend a little time with my girlfriend, all right?
Like, dude's bagged her and he's still insecure. Probably getting Dip's face for no reason other than being a dinkwad. Then later, oh boy, later he's calling out to Wendy like she's a dog.
Wendy! Come on out, girl. Come on down.
Showing that he wasn't listening to Wendy while playing the game. That he was rubbing Dipper's face in. Meaning that he literally was thinking about how cool of a burn that was. That he didn't even pay attention to his girl. He was thinking, you know what would make Dipper jealous? Is if I brought her closer to me and gave him a side eye. And you know that she brought it up other times after this too. Since they're literally girlfriend-boyfriend. But when Dipper calls him out for it...
What was that?
I just said she's not here.
No. You want to get into it, huh?
He then tries to embarrass Dipper, pushing him and calling him out for being 12. It clearly been waiting for a moment to unleash it all on Dipper as soon as he's able to. But like I said before, he just goes off based on the situation. Like how in the inconveniencing, he called him a loser when he's able.
I'm sure she's just dying to ask out a 12-year-old kid who wears the exact same shorts every day.
He even acknowledges that Dip has no chance to be with Wendy, but he's so insecure about it they just straight up bullying this 12-year-old.
Why don't I call her right now and see if she wants to go out on a date with you?
Why don't we call her? Pushing Dipper's anxiety to the point of slapping the phone out of his hand, shattering it. Must be an iPhone. This is the part where you laugh and subscribe and stuff, please. Please? Oh god. I can't keep doing this. Just please give me some viewers, please. Dipper immediately says, I'll buy you a new one, which would be an easy way out for Robbie. But stupid, hormone-filled, angsty, stubborn, insecure, full Robbie decides that's not enough and wants to fight this 12-year-old.
Hey, I know a fight when I see one. Stay right there.
They schedule for later after Robbie thinks that Grunkle Stan is a caring parental figure and not someone who would bet on a fight between a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old. I'm going really into depth about this episode in particular because of how this is the episode Moist can point to for Robbie being irredeemable. Because without the arcade cabinet coming to life aspect of this episode, Robbie is literally trying to fight the significantly smaller and pathetic excuse for a fighter child. This is just the worst Robbie scene in the series, being an embodiment of why Robbie haters hate the character. In Submarine, he just shows up to be a goal for Dipper. So he'll be like, I have to go to the submarine party so I can date and marry Wendy or something. And Boy's crazy, they break up. Yeah, they are already breaking up after being such a perfect couple. But then Robbie pulls out a maybe mind-controlling disc that gets them back together. Now the question is this song actually cursed or anything? I honestly believe it's not. Yes, there's a backwards message, and yes, Robbie intentionally put it there to subtly suggest them to be together. You are now under my control. Your mind is mine. But I think the end of the episode proves otherwise. All Dipper did was show Wendy the backwards message, and she instantly just trusts Robbie again. I think they got back together because it's a song made for Wendy, and that lovely gesture resulted in her giving him a second chance. But that also means that Robbie intended for the song to be mind-controlling. Like, look at his evil-ass face. You cannot convince me that he doesn't believe that shit he's using is some cursed stuff he made. After this, in the post-dating Wendy era, we see some jokes of Robbie missing Wendy, being heartbroken over their deserved, should-have-happened-sooner breakup. He tries to get her back in the episode Gideon Rises. Wendy receives text from him in the episode Into the Bunker, showing he's obsessively texting her and even sending her a winky frown.
Winky frown? What does that even mean?
And then there's the Love God, where he's literally wallowing in an open grave over Wendy leaving.
I'll never move on, never ever.
Oh, so Dipper breaks your phone and you have to fight him, but you could just break your phone because you're embarrassed for a joke? The cast call out how sad it is that he hasn't moved on yet, since this happened quote-unquote forever ago.
Split up forever ago.
As quoted by Wendy Corduroy. I mean Corduroy.
Borderoy?
I mean Corduroy. Wendy Borderoy.
I mean Corduroy.
I mean Corduroy. Borderoy. I mean... And Mabel decides she needs to make him feel happy to fill up her happiness chart. Which is like, why, girl? He's been out of the group since before this season. Why is he even on the list still? The friend group didn't involve bullying the two 12-year-olds only because Robbie was not there.
How can I be happy if I know someone else is sad?
Why do you gotta force yourself into someone else's life like that? And that she does. She looks at everyone in town and decides Tambry, one of the people in said friend group, is the perfect match for him. But when this 12-year-old sets up a blind date for the two of them and it goes wrong, Mabel decides to steal and use a love potion on the two, which goes pretty great. Until the rest of the group finds out about them getting together and all get upset.
Robbie and
So like
Tambry?
Tambry to do
You
this.
knew I liked her. Told Robbie, but not me.
Tear her highlights out.
Ow!
The biggest problem people have with this ship of Robbie x Tambry is that Robbie sucks and that the consent is questionable. Well, the episode shows that their relationship actually made Robbie a better person, even more than if he was with someone else. I guess Mabel was right about something. I guess Mabel was right about something. But is this relationship real, or is it just the potion? I believe that the love is real, but is enhanced by the potion. Just like Robbie's music, though this time it's actually something magical. This is even supported by the books. Journal 3, a one-to-one creation of the book from the show that is 1,000,000% canon, talks about the love potion being more of a nudge, only lasting 3 hours after the fact. I wonder how that Snatcher's doing. I know, using extra content can be a bit cringe, but I believe that to be the case in the first place. With how the love god basically says that only he can choose the right pairings, otherwise there could be consequences. So maybe the reason they fell in love is because of the pairing actually being pretty good. The potion doesn't just change their personalities to love each other and that's it. They still have their base character quirks, but within an actual stable relationship, and actually able to talk to each other, so just dismissing each other. And I mean, definitely out of everybody in the cast to be with Robbie, Tambry is a perfect pick. But is that good enough to be a redemption? I honestly believe so. Yes, of course, it could be better. We all wish we could have more episodes of Pacifica's redemption, but one can only dream when it comes to Gravity Falls. The only reason Robbie has been a bad person in the past is his unrequited want to be with Wendy, but he doesn't truly love her. Even being with her, he was a terrible, manipulative guy who only saw her as a trophy to have and protect. He cared more about showing her off than actually listening to her, rather beat up a 12-year-old than face his shortcomings. But with Tambry, it seems like actual love. Like he wants to be with her, and isn't overly protective of her. I believe that Mabel actually redeemed Robbie, and made the entire group happy. With the help of Thompson, of course.
All according to plan.
Robbie's biggest problem was pride, and true love solved that. But with that being said, much like many other interesting ideas that the show doesn't go into enough, this needed more episodes. Like an episode to show Robbie has actually changed and trying to be better. So that way the love potion doesn't just fix everything for him. The best redemptions, hell, even any redemption, shouldn't just come from an outside forces. There should also be the person themselves to be willing to change. The potion just kind of skips the will part for the hardest, biggest first step of being a redeemed character. That's why I believe all it would take is another episode showing Robbie earning it, so that way he could hold the weight to the giant leap that the potion skipped over in terms of him changing himself. And that's why I believe that this was enough to make me not mad about this episode, unlike how most people are. The title of this video was a response to Kitty Monk's and Sarcastic Chorus's video on why this ship and redemption are both bad. But I decided to not make the whole video calling their opinions wrong or invalid like I originally thought when I made the title and idea for this video. Instead, I decided to do my own thing and make a video and saying my thoughts about it all. Instead of just being us watching a clip and then counterpointing and or agreeing with them. Especially since both of their main points were thoughts on the potion, where we both read the consent part as being entirely different. Cause like yeah, it's a bit weird that Mabel's all okay with messing with her love life, and then stops when it comes to messing with her love life. I think the point is that it'll turn into messing with their love life over and over until everybody just snaps.
I'm gonna tear her highlights out.
It just didn't come across because the love life between characters isn't the writer's strong suit. I mean, the other worst episode was also weird to bad shipping. So who knows what would have happened if Dipsifica had an actual follow-up episode. And I think that if Love God explained that the effects weren't forever and instead a nudge like I and the journal said earlier, then I think this episode would have been basically no complaints other than a redemption not being overly earned. But if I thought and believed that the show was saying that the love potions are literally just mind control, then I would also think this episode sucks. But I honestly believe that wasn't what was meant, and not how I saw the episode at all. No hate or disrespect to those creators at all. I respect them a lot as content creators. I see this video as inspired by them rather than a plain old critique of their critique. In the Gravity Falls episode Into the Bunker, when Dipper and Wendy are locked in the closet by Mabel in order for Dipper to gain the confidence to confess his love.
Oh, I'll let you out, Dipper. As soon as you tell Wendy that thing you've been wanting to tell her.
Wendy could have just said, okay, I'll close my ears and you say it out loud to Mabel. Then the whole episode wouldn't have happened. If only Wendy thought about closing her ears, especially when she knows how anxious Dipper is, when later she reveals that she even knew about it.
Dude, I always kinda knew.
Wait, you did?
So she could have just closed her ears and everything would have been perfectly fine. Because then Dipper could have said it, they could have got in the closet, and they wouldn't have been chased by a shape-shifting monster that probably traumatized them for the rest of their life, that they probably had to go to therapy to figure out what exactly their feelings were about that moment. Because that is one of the most stressful moments of the series. Subscribe for more trauma, you freak. Gravity Falls has many mysteries, but one of the big mysteries that was unsolved by the show, besides Grunkle's ex-wife, is what the shapeshifter said in the season 2 episode Into the Bunker. After the gang defeats and traps the shapeshifter, he then says this: "You think you're clever, don't you? But you have no idea what you're up against. You'll never find the author. If you keep digging, you'll meet a fate worse than you can imagine. And this will be the last form you ever take."
Good luck sleeping tonight.
As he transforms into a frozen screaming version of Dipper Pines, the character from Gravity Falls. Now, as most fans may know, this comes up only once again in the franchise with the episode Northwest Mansion Mystery. After Dipper tries to take down this grudge-filled ghost, Dipper fails and is turned into wood in the exact same way. Same pose, and even having a weird reverb to his voice. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking, well, where's the mystery there? And I say, where's not the mystery? There's so many strange things about this that I'll talk about after this sponsor. If I had any! The exact words the shapeshifter said was, "You'll never find the author. If you keep digging, you'll meet a worse fate than you can imagine, and this will be the last form you ever take." The Northwest Mansion Mystery episode has literally nothing to do with the digging of the author, first of all, but more importantly, isn't the last form he takes? Pacifica then pulls the lever to find her family for the first time in generations, which frees all those turned to wood as the ghost feels lumber justice.
I feel lumber justice.
So then he's just wrong about it, whatever he may be saying. But then how in the actual pine tree did he know that Dipper would take that exact pose and reverb? The fact that he is a shapeshifter gives no reason that he should be able to predict the future, and yet he did, and was wrong at the same time. Like, I know in real life it's likely the team decided that this would be a good moment for the fans to notice, like when Ford sprayed the Cipher wheel and did a whole spiel of how it works. But just like that, I have to ask, what even? It's something that doesn't get used at all in the way it was set up, only to show it as a reference to the seed being planted. So then why does this wood scene happen at all in the canon of the show? In real life, we know it was because of the setup, but in the show, it makes it out to be that the shapeshifter can predict the future somewhat, and yet he still gets defeated several times. It's obvious that the shapeshifter did it as an intimidation, just to scare Dipper, just like he did before when he changed forms into this horrifying Dipper and Mabel fusion. This horrifying Dipper and Mabel fusion. Like, that's the obvious intention of the scene. The shapeshifter even says he'll never find the author just to get to him. And I think he does this even more because of his hatred towards the author.
But I do thank you for bringing me his journal. He used to write it while I was in my cage. That six-fingered nerd hasn't been himself in 30 years.
Seeing Dipper as him to the point of taking out his years of anger to torment this child. But then there's always a scene of it actually happening to Dipper in a Northwest Mansion. The mystery here is that if the shapeshifter is indeed not able to see the future, why then does his prediction come true? In the lore of the show, it only makes sense as a wildly specific coincidence. In real life, it's obvious that the behind-the-scenes reason for it is just because they could connect it. But for something that a monster predicted saying that it'll be the death of the main character is kinda wild when it means literally nothing. In this show that has hyper-specific details and puzzle made for an audience of screenshotters and decoders. I said that this is one mystery that the fans haven't solved, but just like some real-life conspiracy mysteries, it could just be a coincidence. In this scene of Gravity Falls, Bill Cipher says,
Ah, my eye! Do you have any idea how long it takes to regenerate that?
If we actually look through the episode and count, it actually takes less than 4 minutes for his eye to regenerate, and we don't even get to see it regenerate, meaning that Bill is being an overdramatic queen as usual. Subscribe for more facts or something. Gravity Falls has many amazing characters, but one character that should have had more screen time, besides the shapeshifter, is the icon Pacifica Northwest. Just like Robbie Valentino, some fans absolutely hated Pacifica before season 2. She was mean and rude for most every time she had an appearance. Literally, her first introductory scene was her making fun of Mabel and her new friends.
Fork girl? Lizard lady? I'm Mabel. That sounds like a fat old lady's name.
She's rude with Tude, even when she gets upset when her family name is actually a sham. Don't get it skewed. This crude dude is nothing but snood. Yeah, anyway, she's annoyingly rich and actually puts down and belittles everyone around her that's not a millionaire. Sorry, I don't know why I started rhyme zoning there. But that all started changing for those rich kid haters with the season 2 episode, The Golf War. This episode shows Mabel challenging Pacifica to an epic mini golf showdown because once again, she's being rude to not only Mabel's friends, but this time her whole family.
Well, if it isn't the Pines family, fat, old, lame, braces.
Zeus, would it be wrong to punch a child?
You know what, maybe I was wrong about Bill Cipher actually being rude and calling Mabel fat, because this is starting to be a trend with this Zeus guy. He's a little suspicious though. But even immediately after Dipper tries to roast her back with the whole family being frauds thing, she snaps back so casually that she's completely fine and rich. So even then with her family name, she wasn't put in her place or shown humility, because the richer get richer, as they say. Just like I'll get richer from the sponsor. If I had any. But Pacifica goes and gets a hole-in-one on Mabel's favorite activity on the day she was trying to blow off steam, which was also because of Pacifica. So Mabel goes, oh yeah?
You walking one-dimensional bleach blonde valley girl stereotype!
Oh snap. Yeah, I recapped that much of the episode just to talk about how good of a moment this is. Can you blame me? But this is also to show how this episode perfectly recaps where Pacifica's character is and her relationship with every other cast member within just a few minutes. But this episode introduces a few of her redeeming moments with the audience. The first being of how her parents shove her off to an assistant, not even being there for her and telling her only winning matters, since the Northwest don't lose. Which in of itself wouldn't be redeeming if she didn't care, but the episode takes time to show how she does care, obviously putting a front of superiority just to cope with her truly messed up life, which we'll see a lot of in the next episode we talk about. But later in the episode, Mabel has an epiphany that, and I quote, rivalries are dumb and they should instead stop fighting and work together, which we see Pacifica looking down, truly thinking about what Mabel is saying and why they should change it up. And the episode even ends with a humbling moment of her taking a car ride home with the gang, which is really nice and actually a sweet moment. Even though it ends with them being like, oh, she's rich.
Should have charged her for that taco.
Agreed.
The episode really moved the needle in terms of people's perception of Pacifica. Obviously, some people still hated her, as I believe there are fans that hate every single character for different reasons at different moments. I even made a video about why Season 2B sucks compared to the rest of Gravity Falls, and a lot of that resides on Ford's shoulders. But I literally love that dork, so whenever people don't like something about Gravity Falls, I gotta remind you to respect their opinions even a little. And to just not be rude to each other. Yes, I am saying this because of the comment sections on previous videos, and no, I would not keep talking about this right now. On to the next episode. On to the next episode. The audience may have been on the fence with the Little Miss Northwest, but what changed most Pacifica dislikers' opinions was this one episode. Season 2's episode, Northwest Mansion Mystery. This episode is set up Mabel has Dipper and Pacifica team up since she needs help with this ghastly ghost, which honestly has some of my favorite Pacifica moments of the whole show. Dipper and Pacifica banter back and forth, just straight up making fun of each other and trying to get under each other's skins.
So what? Are you going to bore him back into the afterlife by reading from this book?
Gotta splash this sucker with some anointed water, and he should be out of your probably fake blonde hair.
What was that about my hair?
These interactions are so fun to watch because they're just on the same wavelength when messing with each other, which we've seen a little before even with the whole family fraud thing, but it's just such a shame that this is the last episode of it.
I'd say that to her face.
I need your help.
You're the worst. See?
But the key character moments come after Dipper catches the ghost using a silver mirror. Though just before that, we see that even when being chased by a category 10 ghost that made animal heads bleed and chant ancient sins, she doesn't want to get the carpet of a room full of silver mirrors dirty, being deathly afraid of her parents. Which comes up again when Dipper realizes that the Northwest lied. All they needed to do was let the common people enter their party and the ghost wouldn't have been a problem in the slightest. The ghost was betrayed back then, just like Dipper was betrayed now. Except without, you know, the axe or the head.
I was right about you all along. You're just as bad as your parents. Another link in the world's worst chain.
But while Pacifica speaks up and defends herself against Dipper, saying that her parents made her do it, her father rings a bell. And as soon as he does, the moment he does, she pipes down and doesn't say another word. Having a literal Pavlovian response to the ringing of the bell, which if you don't know is an involuntary reaction that occurs when a neutral stimulus is associated with a biological stimulus. That's the straight up Google definition of a Pavlovian response, but in more human speak, it basically means a conditioned response to a particular action through the use of repetition. Like in the original experiment, it's a bell combined with food time for a donkey, eventually leading to the ringing of the bell instantly being understood by the dog as food time, even when food isn't present. And even though the team behind Gravity Falls might disagree with this statement from what I've heard, but this is child abuse. Now, they have said something along the lines of her parents never abused Pacifica. They may be meaning physical, like hitting. This could still be the case, but either way, this is psychological abuse. Later in the episode, we see Pacifica is literally trembling at the ringing of the bell while trying to save her not only fake friends in her life so far, Dipper and Mabel, and this entire party of people. They were literally all turned to wood and will be slowly burned alongside the entire mansion if not for Pacifica pulling this lever. And yet, she was trembling, struggling to do the easiest trolley problem in the world, all because of this bell. But even with the threat of some unknown punishment the parents would give, she defies them, literally putting her foot down and saying,
"Is this bell broken?
Our family name is broken, and I'm gonna fix it."
Fully redeeming Pacifica to the audience and to Dipper, making this character somebody that'll be amazing to see for the next time they interact with his newfound freedom and friendship. Dipper and Pacifica never interact again for the rest of the show. And yeah, Mabel only has one moment with her in the finale, which was a bit of a sweet moment of Mabel giving a freezing Pacifica a llama sweater, though the moment was only highlighted in the episode because of it coming up later with the Cipher wheel, so I'm not sure if we should count it. But yeah, Pacifica never really hangs out with Dipper and Mabel again, which is yet another reason that Season 2A and Season 2B should have been 2 full seasons, but hey, that's not what this video is about. And yet the only people she hangs out with and interacts with are her parents? Like, I never really noticed it before, but the most significant moments of Pacifica after that night at the Northwest Mansion is when she tells her dad to not make a deal with Bill Cipher, who then, of course, does literally body horror in my kids show. Hello? And then the next is when everybody is forming the Cipher wheel and her parents say, "Do the one thing our family has never done.
Touch the hillbilly."
Which would be really funny to me if it didn't seem to completely retread on Pacifica's character from the previous episodes. Like, the only other two somewhat significant moments is her reaction to having only one pony, and her at Dipper and Mabel's birthday party.
When are you gonna open your presents already? I broke a nail wrapping them.
Which shows that I lied and they do interact again, but it's truly only a half lie because that's it. That's all. The 2 entire episodes of redeeming Pacifica and this is all she gets. She has more screen time with her terrible parents than she does anybody else, and gets a truly nothing line in the finale, all things considered. Gideon got a whole dang family cutaway gag for his redemption at the birthday party. I know some people get angry about that because those 2 redemption episodes equally spurred fans to ship either Dipper or Mabel, depending on what interactions they enjoy more. But I feel like there's more to it than that. I personally like Dipper and Pacifica. When I was younger, I shipped them together because I was like, duh, girl and guy, and I related to Dippers. But now I truly want these characters to just interact more in the show in general. Their chemistry when it came to bantering was really fun to watch, and why the Northwest Mansion Mystery is a top 10 episode to me, and the Golf War is most probably not. I don't know, I haven't made a top 10 yet. But this character was pushed aside when they have more focused episodes than Wendy even though she's a supposed main character, and yeah, doesn't even have one, even though Robbie has one meant to redeem him, and that tells you something. With all that said, it's obvious that Pacifica could have had more interesting episodes and stories that could have happened. There was even some comics showing that, but more than that, she deserved better than to go to a little back on her character arc in the few times we see her anyways. This very intriguing character is reduced to jokes and bits that put her character arc back to the first season. And I say she's an underrated character because she's not valued highly enough by the show, and thus isn't rated highly by the fans. And clearly, she deserved better. In this scene of Gravity Falls, Grunkle says,
Some kind of invisible ink. Invisible ink.
Then he proceeds to do nothing with that information, to the extent that the next time we see him 10 episodes later, he's actively reading the book for information and not using the blacklight to see the invisible ink. He could have seen the top 2 images of the book structure in the blacklight which say, and I quote, "The device, if fully operational, could tear our universe apart," which he probably could have seen the crazy blacklight warnings and just done it anyway, since he read the warning labels and said,
Extreme usage could result in minor gravity anomaly. Can it, Poindexter? I've come this far. I'm not giving up now.
Right, for more whatever facts, I guess. This one scene quite literally made everyone love this character of Gravity Falls. The season 2 episode The Golf War is loved by a lot of fans, mainly because of this hated character of Pacifica finally showing that she's not just a mean person completely. I had a whole video about Pacifica and her redemption. All you need to know is that before this, Pacifica was really hated. She was rude with to whatever I said in the other video, and made fun of Mabel's friends and family for the entire show, including the beginning of this episode.
Fat, old, lame, braces.
Zeus, would it be wrong to punch a child?
Which the beginning of the episode perfectly recaps where the characters are at, showing that they're all at bad odds, and Pacifica especially really wants to one-up them, which is why it obviously leads to them going at a golf competition for the rest of the episode. The episodes contrast this competition with Pacifica and Mabel with this competition of the Lilliputians, which eventually comes to a head when the Lilliputians of the windmill hole quite literally kidnap Pacifica and plan on cutting her up, I think, as we see later in the episode. But this makes an epiphany with Mabel, making them realize that they should stop fighting, saying that rivalries are dumb and they should instead work together, which turns against them when the Lilliputians work together to take them down, and I think carve up Mabel to get the sticker out because they really value that highly for no reason. For truly no reason, considering they just learned about it today. But they fight him off and escape.
What's 10 minus 6?
10. Hang on.
Where once again, Mabel again apologizes, giving a "I apologize" sticker, which is weird. This quirk of her giving stickers doesn't really happen after this episode, but it happens a lot, and this is a crucial element to this episode, but it doesn't come up again. And for the first time in the show, Pacifica doesn't try to roast her immediately after, like, Mabel tries to be nice. She says, "You're lucky this will be good on me," which is progress, baby, hello. And then the scene happens. The scene that this episode is kind of building towards a little bit, but this scene didn't need to be in the show. They could have easily just had it be like everybody goes home on their own way, the parents pick her up or whatever, but they purposely decide to have the parents not pick her up, which is very apt for what earlier we hear from the parents. When they drop her off earlier, they told her that winning is all that matters, make sure you win. We won't be here to see it. Make sure you win though, because Northwest don't lose. But then they're not even here to pick them up. So they don't even know that her like golfing teacher isn't here anymore. I guess Pacifica does say that she'll get a new one, and everybody just glosses over that. They just left the man behind for dead just because she'll get a new one because she's rich.
I'll get a new one.
Dipper and Mabel get in the car after Grunkle and Suits pull up to pick them up, but Mabel looks out at Pacifica and looks at Dipper, and Dipper's like, nuh-uh. Which I really like, because it shows that Mabel may be okay with Pacifica now, but Dipper isn't. And I really like that they just have a little moment like that just to show it. But barely before Dipper's even done with his nod, Mabel goes, "Hey, your parents are here. You need a ride?" Which is like, oh, so nice. But I love the way that the audio directioning is. I know this is weird. Am I talking about? Yeah, I'm talking about the audio directioning in this Cartoon Kids show. Hello, everybody. It's MrMatter. I do that. I'm a freak. I have problems with my brain, and Gravity Falls is the only solution. Okay.
Hey, your parents aren't here.
Want to ride home?
The way Mabel delivers that line makes me feel at home in like reality, just like somewhat real and blunt. Feels like she's actually talking out of the car at her and like speaking up louder for that. I just really enjoy that aspect. I think it adds a lot to the scene. I think it sets the mood for this entire scene of how like they're gonna have this like just real moment of nicety and sweetness. Oh, it's so sweet, so cute. And Pacifica very obviously not being on that level yet, because she'll accept the sticker and be like, oh, whatever. And she goes, please, as if I'd write in here, and then thunder strikes, which would be seen as like, oh, isn't that coincidental? But that literally happens before in the episode, showing that they're in like a stormy week or something. Because literally before, a rainstorm appears to make it to where they have to reschedule for the next day so they can have more dialogue scenes in between there and have them sneak into the park instead of having a competition midday. So it's more interesting, and they can have the Puchians kidnap Pacifica, and it's fine in terms of people figuring it out. And I just love the hard cut from her standing there upset about the storm to her being equally as wide-eyed inside of the car. And then Grunkle, Stan, and Sue are singing a song out of sync and not even being the same song really. But it adds to the fact of like how she's in a different mood right now. She's like with somebody else's family right now. Like this is what it's like to be picked up by somebody else's family, and it captures that mood perfectly, that childhood moment. Dipper's looking to the side out the window, just like trying to avoid the situation, arms crossed, being a little bit uncomfortable clearly. And then Mabel's just like enjoying life, looking out the window happily. And then her putting a hand on a mysterious unknown like liquid or goop, which has consistency of gum, but it's like way too much to be gum. And then immediately after she's grossed out by this weird stain, Mabel finds burritos behind finds 2 tacos behind the seat, which is kind of all random, but literally earlier we saw them getting tacos, which is a little nod to that time Dipper went to, oh, I can't remember the name for some reason. Anyway, it goes to Florida, I think, maybe, I don't know.
Okay, let's all stop.
Are you writing Dipper Goes to...
This says Dipper Goes to Florida. I don't know why he would go there.
But what's super interesting about the fact that she takes out these tacos is Pacifica's response to it, because obviously you think she'd be grossed out by the fact she just got grossed out by the goopy on the floor, so she'd be thinking, oh, goopy could be on the tacos, but instead she's shocked that she's able to eat in the car.
You're allowed to eat in the car?
Which again reinforces how strict her parents are. Literally every scene she's in, you can see the effects of what her parents had on her. And it's really just child needs to be taken away, protected from these abusive parents. Are you kidding me? Like, she's obviously like this because of her parents being so pushing her in this direction. Their mom tore up the ugly duckling page for the last page to have it be like, oh, that got ugly and no one loves him, and that was the end of the story. And then Mabel instantly has like just the most Gravity Falls line. It's like, yeah, the car is where Secret Surprise Snacks happens. And it's like, man, I love this show. And then she offers her one and goes, oh, I'm not supposed to take handouts, which is like, damn, she is ingrained in this culture of being rich and pompous. Like, she thinks getting a gift for somebody or somebody being your friend and getting something is a handout, which shows really how fake her friends that we've seen before are, to the fact that like they never even just like have given each other like, oh, here's some chapstick to unchap your lips. And I do like that Mabel is like a true friend. She's not like weirded out or being like, oh, she's like this. Like Dipper, if he was that handout, she's like, oh, handouts. Pacifica is such a rich bit. I can't say that. But instead of being like shocked or appalled by it, Mabel instantly being like, you know what sharing is, right? And then she's like, sharing?
Sharing?
Just take it.
Just take it. I love that. The scene is so good at putting Pacifica down to reality of like what a normal human goes by, I guess. Not like a rich 1% person, but instead of like a normal person in Gravity Falls, really. And just having this moment to show like how completely just brainwashed she is within the rich society within this couple of minute thing. It's like not that long of a scene. And even though they could have just had literally anything else in the episode, like flesh out another scene or have more jokes in the episode, instead they decide to flesh out this scene of Pacifica just being in a car with somebody else's family, being picked up and dropped off, just having a normal kid moment, eating tacos in the back of a car, you know? And I'm guessing some time passed because she walks out of the car and doesn't have the taco anymore. And they talk about how she ate the taco, I think. So I'm guessing she ate the taco. We didn't see a scene of her eating a crumbly taco and her going, ew, this is crumbly. And the scene is so nice and good. It has like some jokes in it and it helps flesh out these characters. It has some nice jokes that grounds her, but also like adds laughs to the audience. Because like if you hate her or whatever, then it shows like, oh, she doesn't fit in. But it also makes you be like, oh, she doesn't fit in. again, she is entirely different in this world. And that's what this episode really does good. It's like before we see her, she's always a top dog. She's either with her family or she's like the leader of a pack of friends or telling a group of people to throw tomatoes at Grunkle's stand or something, you know?
I want you to say that the Northwest family is the best family in Gravity Falls.
Oh, sure. You want that in writing?
There we go.
Ha! I did that with my mouth!
And in this episode, she's alone. Her family abandoned her at this abandoned golf course at night just because she's doing a competition. And that's clearly the only reason they're allowing her to do this. Which is why I would have loved like another episode of like, what if Pacifica uses the excuse of like challenging Mabel to something to just like hang out and be friends. And that could be like a whole episode. I don't know. It's just so easy to write like concepts for episodes for this stuff because you just want to know where your characters go from here and how they do. Which again, watch the full Pacifica video to for more about that. Which any of you guys watching this video likely probably know. This scene was so iconic to some people that this was animated, fully reanimated in an anime style for What If Gravity Falls was an anime video from 10 years ago, 2014, October 9th, 2014, of reanimating this exact scene, showing how important this scene truly is to people, which the animation really got the mood of the scene perfectly and really adding this really complex layer of like what anime style can do and everything, and adding even little new things like Mabel, instead of just standing there looking off into space, she's like bobbing her head around. In the plot of like Gum or Goop or whatever is more of like a tinier amount is like perfectly fit for her hand. But the real reason I'm talking about this, besides talking about an awesome fandom thing that happened, is the scene after she says, just take it. In the actual version of the scene in the show, it just shows him pulling up to the mansion. But in this reanimated version of the scene, it shows Mabel taking a bite of it and her looking down at the taco, showing her truly being moved by this kindness. It really makes this more of an anime moment, which honestly the show would have benefited from just showing Pacifica, because her flashing back, looking down on the taco, flashing back to her being mean to them on all the previous episodes, and just showing that this taco represents like something very nice that she didn't need to do for this person when all she's done is be rude to this person for an entire life. And she has this just little broken smile and teared eye and then eats it. It's like, oh, what an animator can do to add extra context just through animation. No extra dialogue or anything. But either way, this entire scene, the regular scene I'm talking about now, not the anime version, truly made people love her so much because it showed that this isn't just a rich kid, this is a rich struggling kid. But to talk about where the show leaves Pacifica off is that she walks out and thanks them, which is like first time that happened. Okay. And Pacifica goes, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I had fun, which shows like, oh, she actually had fun during this. And you gotta wonder like how much she does have fun because of that line. And then compliments Seuss about his W neck.
And tell your servant I like his W neck.
And yeah, she says, tell your servant that I like his W neck. But we're gonna put that aside for a second and say that she actually gave like appreciation to Seuss and Mabel there about like how she had fun today and that the W neck is cool, which is good because earlier in the episode he did that because of her. And the main thing is that she didn't need to say that, but she did because now she's like being nicer.
And tell your servant I like his W neck.
Yes!
It's something I didn't notice. Something I don't think I noticed before is that Grunkle's stand, when he hears that, goes from a full like cheek-to-cheek smile to like a frown and looks at Seuss as soon as that happens. It's like, I don't, why is he so upset? Probably because earlier you tried to like seduce him a little bit.
Sure are a lot of stars out tonight.
Well, this is getting weird.
And Dipper, being the inquisitive little boy he is, asks if they're cool now because he's not cool with her. And Mabel says, I think we made some progress, which is true. We need another episode, but we made progress. This like character is progressing to us. But just so the audience is at where the crew wants them to be at, they put in this joke of her being like, she's just a regular girl, and then shows the giant fountain and fireworks going off and saying, you win, congratulations on winning, Pacifica. And then the solid joke to like to put down the audience a little bit on like fully redeeming Pacifica goes, should charge her for the taco. Agreed. Which if you're going, oh, Pacifica is like fully getting redeemed right now or having this big push for it, instead it's like, okay, she's having this big push forward to being redeemed, but they need to do a little bit of a pullback with the burrito.
Should have charged her for that taco.
Agreed.
Which is like, oh, you're just gonna do this joke after like you try to redeem this character, but you're not trying to redeem him. You're just trying to push the needle a little bit. Which is why this one scene is so important to this character and what made people love her. It made the scene ground Pacifica in a way we haven't really seen before this episode, and especially in this episode, nothing this severe of having just like her casually talk about things, which leads to us understanding truly like how messed up in the brain she is by how her parents like have forced her to be this way throughout her entire life, and just a symbol of like the this taco of being like this nice thing that Mabel is doing when all she's done before is be rude and mean to her. But literally whenever anybody like hates Pacifica or thinks she's the worst and will say it to her face, they completely turn heel as soon as this episode appears usually. And if not, it's with the Northwest Mansion mystery episode, which I talk about more in the full video here. Just like I did with the one joke video and how it goes to the Robbie video, this one is also just like talking about this one scene of why it's important, which is why I kind of glossed over it in my initial analysis, because I really wanted to go in depth in this scene because of how much it does and how much it does for Pacifica's character, specifically the audience's reception to it. It's super important to her character to the point of like being crucial. This is a crucial moment, which is why it was such an important moment that people wanted to animate it. And I think the reason why that video has 53 million views isn't just because it's like, oh, Gravity Falls is really popular right now and it does that. I think it's because it creates an emotional response that the show didn't have, but also emphasizes the way people think about it. At some point, I heard this fun fact that Alex Hirsch originally planned for 3 seasons. And after realizing how hard it was to run an entire show, he decided to combine the latter 2 seasons into the season 2 we see today. Now over time, I've come to believe this as a fact. Even though I couldn't find the source, you can kind of tell with how halfway through season 2, it becomes a different show. Season 2 could most definitely have been 2 seasons. With how unplot focused season 1 was for the majority of it, you could see how if he spaced out the season 2 plot episodes with Not What He Seems being the finale, we could have had time to breathe and enjoy the new dynamic of the newly found uncle. Though, I believe that if this happened, if season 3 was made of the same quality but a longer length, we would have said that this season was bad.
What?
I know, I love this show too, but it's hard to deny how hard Gravity Falls truly falls off after Not What He Seems and the subsequent episodes that takes place immediately after. I believe the fact that we didn't catch on to the fact it was much worse was something I call the Star Versus effect.
Star versus the forces of evil.
As you may know, Star Versus fell from grace very, very hard, becoming a pale imitation of itself. But the cutoff point was after their Battle for Mini special, being essentially a Not What It Seems for an entire movie length. After this, it took a while for many of the fans to realize the show got worse, because of them just being so excited to see more of the show that they love, after such an exciting ending. But watching it now, after knowing how worse the show gets, it's immediately obvious to tell how horrendous the show got. Right after the climax to all the plot, ships, and arcs that built up so far in the show, the first episode is Star sniffing Marco's hoodie because it smells like him. And the episode is about how she doesn't want to wash this stinky, dirty clothing. At first, fans didn't think this was bad, but just weird. Assuming this would be just a one-off thing and that isn't a sign of how terrible the show would become by being ruined by wild shipping that jumps all over the place for no reason at all other than for relationship drama. Which also barely happened in the show before this, by the way. I say all this to relate back to Gravity Falls. If we judge these episodes by it being the new season standard, we would have ranked the show season 2, 1, and then 3 in last place. Mainly praising some plot episodes and the fact that the finale happens this season. Gravity Falls was able to make the audience never think that by making each episode incredible for the first half of season 2, having some weaker than season 1 non-plot episodes, with some weaker than the first half season 2 plot episodes, then having an emotional finale, all within a single season. We were still in the honeymoon phase of how great the earlier parts were, plus the fact that it's all labeled under one single season, making us never really consider if the show got worse. But I've been doing a lot of talky about how the season gets worse without doing the walkie of taking you through why I believe this. So let's get right into it with A Tale of Two Stands.
My brother.
Oh my god, babe.
Family.
Right after the incredible, awesome, and downright amazing episode of television that was Not What He Seems, we got A Tale of Two Stands.
Brother!
This being the episode 1 special of this season 3. Just like how Battle for Mini is technically in season 3 of Star Versus, while being the epic finale that led on from season 2's finale. Meaning that this episode isn't a reflection of what this season offers, more of an impactful story beat special that follows a cliffhanger of a finale that was not what he seems. This episode gets into both of the Stan twins' backstory for a majority of the episode, ending with the plot of the previous episodes of season 2 being wrapped up fairly fast and easy. The plot of being distrusting Grunkle Stan, the US government tracking them down, and finding the author of the journals. This leaving much room for a new structure of what season 3 holds in the first regular episode, Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons. I'll be honest, This is the first episode where even I, watching as a 13-year-old when it came out, thought it was very much a non-plot episode that just feels off from how the show was before, and I believe I can very easily explain why that is with just this first episode.
Your math is no match for my gun, you idiot!
It's the fact that the show has never been this sci-fi.
Your math is no match for my gun, you idiot!
The way Gravity Falls has been with this show, and what made me fall in love with it, is how mythical and witchy the show is. In every other episode, the plot is always about an anomaly that the cast can't really fully understand without looking at what's been documented in the journal. To just go through them real fast, we have gnomes, Loch Ness Monster, alive sculptures, a child with a magic gem, ghosts, manly minotaurs, paper machine clones, president being held alive in an amber-like substance, time travel tape measure, a live arcade cabinet, shrinking and glowing flashlight, Satan in the form of candy, monster you shouldn't look at, a bottomless pit, a mermaid boy in a pool, a carpet that can body swap, clones, but celebrities this time, dinosaurs being held alive in an amber-like substance, a dream demon, and a child with a big robot. With those, only a few have sci-fi elements. The Loch Ness Monster episode had McGucket make a robot version of the monster to get attention of his son that is never mentioned again. Clones and the body-swapping carpet are both seemingly either experiments or found cursed technology, which can all be crafted just like how the size-changing flashlight was made from taping a crystal that is affected by light to a flashlight. Being ingenuitive with a natural fine resource instead of a laser gun that just looks futuristic and not scrappily forged at all. The time travel tape measure and the band boy clones can both be said as just how wild the 1% in Hollywood can be, and also bland-ins from the future, so it's not that much of a stretch. But either way, it can all be boiled down to how they present these elements. With many of these other sci-fi elements, they are presented with a founding and unknown quality to them. All these things are found within the plot of the episode, while also being the focus about how weird and absurd these are, which is the focus of the episode. With the other ones being explained by McGucket Shrug, which could be a cop-out, but over the show they really have it be known how crazy Filford is at inventing at their very second episode. And every crazy invention can be traced back either to Fiddleford or Great Uncle Ford. But with those, you can see how rustic or seamful the designs of everything are, showing that these guys are crafting these machines themselves. But in this one episode, we have to assume that he made the most blended, futuristic looking technology of his Ready Player One shocking gloves, a laser gun, and an infinity-sided dice that can literally cause anything possible to happen. Okay, he didn't invent that one, but the way it's designed is enough to get the idea of how different these designs are, causing everything to look overly sci-fi futuristic. And this goes into a different problem that I want to talk about that affects another sci-fi show you may have heard of. Gravity Falls has a bit of a Rick and Morty problem.
Wubba lubba dub dub. In my people's tongue, means I am in great. Please.
Something that happens in the very few episodes we have with Ford is how he can invent and do anything the plot needs him to. Well, before, if Dipper needed to grow and shrink someone, he'd scrounge in the journal for something he could use for it, resulting in the flashlight I mentioned earlier. Now, he just asked Great Uncle Ford if he had something he could use, just like we see in the next episode, the Stentorian candidate. I believe this is another glimpse in what we could have assumed an episode would be like during this time, in this hypothetical version of Season 3. Either Ford would introduce something that would monkey spawn to something bad like a Jimmy Neutron episode, or Dipper would ask for something just like in this very episode. The Centurion candidate is about Stan, Grunkle Stan that is, becoming a candidate for mayor, but Dipper and Mabel need to help make Grunkle Stan a better person by controlling what he says. But it is going real bad so far, which results in this line of both hate and love.
You're memeing fast and none of them are good.
You're memeing fast and none of them are good. So Dipper, being fed up with Stan's failure, goes to Great Uncle Ford, where earlier in the episode he invented a light bulb that would last for 1,000 years and make their skin softer, and he gives Dipper a device he believes could help, a pair of mind-controlling ties designed for Ronald Reagan. Something that was just lying around in Great Uncle Ford's drawer, and when showing what it's made of, it literally just makes computer wires and does technology sounds.
And you can make him a literal talking head.
Whoa.
Do you see what I mean? Instead of explaining how he made it, or it has some mythical witchy aspect, like using a mind manipulation magic, or a powder like Love's God Potions, it's just like beep boop, he's smart and can just do this. Which is exactly what ruined Rick and Morty for many people, including myself. If Rick can just invent anything at any time with any items, it makes him OP to the point it's boring. Like, a later point in the show, in season 4, where him and Phoenix Person, previously known as Bird Person,
Wubba lubba dub dub,
are having a battle to the death, where every couple of seconds, Rick has a new way to come back to life and fight. This scene is animated very, very well, but the fact that this is how crazy Rick can be, it just made me not want to watch any more of this show. I thought it wasn't as good anyways by that point, but the fact that the fight felt completely weightless, like nothing was really happening, shows how terrible this problem has become. I actually did watch up to 2 more episodes, ending with season 5 episode 2 of Rick and Morty, then stopped. But that doesn't really matter to discussing too much, so sorry for mentioning it, but I just wanted to share something about myself sometimes, okay? This is why I said that Gravity Falls has a bit of a Rick and Morty problem. Because obviously it's only a bit of a problem with these few episodes we see, but that's why I'm saying that if this show had the full 3 seasons that was originally planned, season 3 would be the weakest. But we didn't get enough time to breathe before we got another plot episode with the last Mabel corn.
What are you gonna do about it? Huh?
If this episode didn't come out this soon, this show would have been terrible. That's a YouTuber way of saying not that great. Think about it. If we had 10 episodes that were of the same quality of those 2 that came after A Tale of Two Stands, with those episodes we covered being the basis of what non-plot episodes would be like, the show would have been known as getting less good for a bit before the emotional finale. But instead we got a real fast banger of a plot episode. The last Mabel corn goes... The last Mabel corn goes right back into talking about Bill Cipher and how they need to protect the shack and their minds from him. So Mabel goes off on a wild goose chase Grunkle Ford sends her on for unicorn hair, and agreeing he needs to protect those in the shack's minds with a curse spell type witchy thing. Meanwhile, Ford actually plans for him and Dipper to protect their minds through experiments, knowing that Mabel will likely not return with her promised unicorn hair. This episode is incredibly well done and well paced. It goes between the comedy and character growth of Mabel hunting down the hair and learning that she doesn't need to prove to other people that she's a good person, while Ford and Dipper protect their minds and get even more backstory that Ford didn't say in Not What He Seems. Though this episode would have been much more impactful with more episodes to see how Ford and Dipper grow to enjoy and trust each other. I'd say even with me being very critical of these episodes, this absolutely bangs as an episode, being a highlight of the show. They don't use any crazy technology, essentially using a version of the mind erase guns to look through their thoughts. And when Ford threateningly approaches Dipper in a misunderstanding, it forces Dipper to use the memory erase gun as a weapon in self-defense, resulting in a pretty well-rounded and consistent with the rest of the episodes of the show. Because of the technology not being this crazy sci-fi mumbo-jumbo and Ford seemingly being vulnerable to Dipper's weapon, made these scenes super impactful and not being an episode that feels weird in the same way as the others.
It begins with a star and ends with
versus the forces of evil.
Man, what is that, a woodpecker?
Then the next episode was the worst of the show. But that's not really related to any of the reasons I brought up other than maybe the Star Versus one. This episode immediately takes place after the previous episode where Mabel actually ends up getting the unicorn hair, meaning Ford makes a field around the shack. And I repeat, only around the shack. With the after credits scene even saying that Bill Cipher is looking for someone on the outside.
So I'll just have to find my next pawn on the outside.
So in this episode, Roadside Attraction, they go on a gosh darn road trip outside the Mystery Shack, with this episode's after credits seemingly mocking the audience for paying attention as Seuss is left alone outside the shack, which results in nothing to do with Bill Cipher whatsoever.
Where is Seuss anyway?
And how does this relate to Star Versus, you may be wondering, as I said that a second ago? Well, remember what ruined that show was the insistence upon shipping even if it ruins any of the characters involved, going against what they learned and grew from. This episode begins with bringing up Dipper having a crush on Wendy, which was fully talked about and dealt with in the very second episode of this very season, which also makes the only episode focused on Candy Chew being one of the main characters, being the episode that focuses on shipping the characters. Just like how Star vs. the Force of Evil did with Kelly, only for it to never come up again and for Candy to be on the equal spotlight as just one of Mabel's friends. I could talk for much longer about Roadside Attraction and how bad it is and how angry I can get about it. But I don't think I need to go any further as to why the episode is so bad as to be the worst episode of the show. That'll have to be saved for another video.
Have you thought much?
No, not really.
The next episode is then just a prelude to the finale arc. Just like how Now It Seems it's a prelude to the Tale of Two Stands special. This meaning that this episode does a lot of plot and character development very fast. I don't need to overly get into this episode, as no matter whether or not the show was 3 seasons or if the show got worse in season 2B, it doesn't change what this episode is. An episode to go into the finale arc that is Wittermageddon. But what I will say is that this episode is still very good. I would say I don't like it as much as the last Mabel Corn in terms of forward plot focus episodes. And I did love that brief period of time where we thought, or at least I thought, that this was the finale episode of the entire show and later cried in the shower. Only to figure out the next day that they're going to have more episodes in a whole like Wittermageddon arc. But overall, this is a very good episode and doesn't break these rules I talked about throughout the show. Yes, there's futuristic technology, but it's because it's quite literally aliens, and the show talks about how big and crazy it is that the aliens are here and whether or not they caused the weirdness attraction in Gravity Falls, or if it attracted the weirdness, while also putting Ford in a place where Dipper needs to save him, not having this OP smart guy problem I've talked about.
You give me my house back, you give me my name back, and this Mystery Shack junk is over forever.
No!
I don't doubt that the writers of Gravity Falls could have made season 3 if it was full length, good and worthy of the space of episodes. I believe these episodes are a bit messy because, again, the sci-fi Rick and Morty type concerns, but these writers are clever enough to have inserted other plots and character beats into the mix that would have made it feel like a well-rounded season. Just like they would have for this hypothetical version of the season 2. These writers are talented and brilliant, so I have no doubt that it could have been amazing. Again, as I said in the very beginning of this episode, Alex and his team allegedly had a real hard time making the show with how stressful an experience like that can be. So they shortened it to season 2 instead of a season 2 and 3. I do believe that version of the show would have been better pacing with the episodes, but what we got is still incredible. And I don't mean to come across as ungrateful or anything. This show is quite literally my favorite cartoon show from the adventure-like genre. I had a whole video explaining what that genre means, but it's essentially just a show that's similar to or like Adventure Time and would love for more, which we are. We're getting more with the books and comics that are slowly released over time. But I'll never stop loving this show, and I'll never stop making videos about whatever I can about it. Because this whole video was literally me talking about what Season 2B of Gravity Falls is kind of less good than the rest of the show. I will and can talk about anything I'm passionate enough about, which is probably why Mabel rant type videos pop up every once in a while. Not because of people hating the show or Mabel, but by pointing out something that is annoying or unclever or oversought about this show. I hope everyone keeps talking about this show forever, just like I probably always will. Either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please comment what you thought about it. I will be reading literally all the feedback.